Hi there, this is a video about functions, and when in math, functions is probably one of the most important things that we study in higher level math, and it's important that we understand what a function is, how we use it, and how we write them. So first of all, I want to talk about what is a function. This is a special equation, all right, where for each x value, there is exactly one y value, okay? And so, you'll often see things like for each individual input, there's exactly one output, all that kind of stuff. It all means the same thing, and this is as simple as I can make it. All right, and what I want you to do is I want you to think of a computer. All right, so computers is a function in of itself. Okay, and when you think of a computer, I want you to think about, well, how does an x value and a y value correlate to that? Well, the x value, also known as your input, is the button that you press. Okay, so the button that you press. The y value, also known as the output, is the result on the screen. All right, and so when you think about it in basic terms, when you press a button on the computer, all right, so when you press a button, all right, one thing happens, okay? And, just think of like a Word document, all right? Like if you press the K button, a K pops up on the screen, all right? It doesn't also open Spotify, start playing Pearl Jam, and, call your mom. It doesn't do all those things. It just does one thing, all right? So, that's the idea. So that's where we, the application of this is so vast in computers. All of your coding is designated by, a function, all right? So let's talk about how we write functions and how we look at them, all right? So one thing I want to do is I want to write down this equation and say y equals 3x plus 2. Now, I could also write this equation in function notation and write it as f of x is equal to 3x plus 2. All right, this is in function notation. All right, they really mean the same thing. They're just written differently. All right, and so the thing that you have to realize is that, the y value and the f of x value are the same thing. So you can say that f of x is equal to y, and that when you write f of x, that's simply just a y value. Okay, now let's talk about evaluating functions. So let's say that we use that same function that we had, all right? F of x is equal to 3x plus 2. And oftentimes what you're going to be asked to do in a situation like this is to find f of, say, 4. All right, and what this means is that you plug in 4 for x and determine y, okay? And so let's do that. If I wanted to plug in 4 into this function, I'm going to write f of 4 is equal to, and where I had x in my function, I'm going to replace that with what the input is, which is 4. So I'm going to do 3 times 4 and then plus 2. So f of 4 is then going to be equal to 3 times 4 is 12, and then plus 2. So f of 4, 12 plus 2 gives us 14. Okay, and so this is my answer. Now, what this means, essentially, is that this is a point on the graph, all right? And meaning that when x is equal to 4, all right, when x is equal to 4, that y is equal to 14, all right? And so, I can write it like this, or I can write that as a coordinate point, 4, 14, and those things mean the same thing. All right, so if you plug in a number into a function, you should get another number out of that. You're plugging in an x value, you should pop out a y value. All right, and that's all you're doing. It's pretty simple, but it's just a little weird because you're using this notation with an f and a parenthesis and all that. All right, and so let's take a look at another example. So let's say that you have a function f of x is equal to 3x plus 2, and it wants you to find f of x minus 1. So what I'm going to do, if I want to do this, I'm going to plug in x minus 1. That's my input. Now that's an algebraic expression. X minus 1 could also be considered a function depending on how you define it. But for right now, what I want to do is plug this into my function here. So if I do f of x minus 1, where I had an x value, I'm going to replace that with x minus 1. Now, it's important that we put parentheses around this and put x minus 1. I always use parentheses just to kind of keep things straight, and you'll see in the next video why that's the case. So from here, what I can do is I want to then simplify this. All right, f of x minus 1, I'm going to distribute my 3, so we're going to get 3 times x, which is 3x, and then 3 times negative 1, which is negative 3, and then add 2. All right, my next step down is to collect like terms, and so I'm going to get 3x. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. All right, and so when I plug in an expression into my function, all right, it's going to give us another function. All right, so we get a new function. All right, so it's a little bit weird to do that. The notation's kind of weird, but that's all I'm doing. All right, so you know, when you plug in a number for x, you get a new number. If you plug in an algebraic expression or another function into a function, you should get a new function. All right, that's all I got for this video. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.